Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have a new release of Guild Wars called Guild Wars Reforged, which anybody who's familiar with how this game typically looks, you'll notice it's got a little bit of a graphic upscale, but it's going to be most noticeable here in the skills, where you can tell they did an AI upscale of all of these icons. Other than that, I haven't noticed a terrible amount of difference. It is definitely smoother than it was, although frame rate's still a little questionable. But, I mean, it's an ancient game, and my PC is way too powerful for this, so I give it credit for actually running. I do wonder, we were having issues with entering Realm of Torment and having it completely crash, so see what the deal is. Music in this mission is so nice. It's a nice, comfortable mission where a halfway decent party that doesn't need to be nearly as sweaty as mine can farm a good source of ecto by selling celestial essences in packs of 15 to players. And then you can also reliably get a good bit of the 4 main ingredients to consumable sets, which are an obvious moneymaker, whether you're going to use them yourself. Look at that skybox. Oh man. Or, sorry, whether you're just going to sell them to like players who plan to like farm hardcore. Either way, I mean, for newer players, getting the materials to craft concepts is a solid move. I'm using my rather lazy, just blood drain build for this particular mission. It's, while it doesn't do nearly as much damage as my typical scythe build, this mission goes so much faster if you're running ranged, no doubt. Keeping your heroes from doing dumb things in this corner is also kind of difficult. And look at that, we got a stack of 18 feathers right there. We do not have the favor of the gods right now. It seems that all the people who were waiting for Reforged to drop to get their last little bit of a title have sort of slowed down. Look at that. Even more components for con sets, and that's definitely what we want to see. And look at that. That's a real prize right there. That was dumb of me. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering, this guy's just talking about video games. This guy never just talks about video games. And I suppose what I would respond to that is, what in the world would I even say about the state of the world currently? You know? What exactly is there left to be done? We all know what's coming. The hyperinflation and massive crash is coming. Likely sometime middle of next year, maybe even in the spring by some economist estimates. And none of us are prepared. Like, unless you've been living rich this entire time and you've had the ability to stack up the capital and material needed to have an actual stash of like survival supplies, I mean, you're fucked. And that's fine, because we're all fucked together. And that is where we find ourselves. We're at a place where no matter how prepared you are, it's not enough. There won't be a single blade of grass on God's green earth spared the corruption that's coming. Because first it'll be the economics. They'll make everything suck. And they'll make everybody poor and hungry, and there'll be chaos and turmoil everywhere. But then their solution comes in. What is their solution? A satanic new world order. 100%. It's always been the play. Nothing they ever do was ever about trying to get rich or whatever. These people don't need money. They have all the money. That's why I hate when people talk about, oh, Bill Gates did all XYZ just for profit, or Elon Musk did this just for profit. No, those people have all the profit. They don't need your money. They have more money than they'll ever need. It was about gaining more control, specifically inside your mind, not physical control, but mental control, the ability to turn you into a programmable, predictable machine. That's real control. When you don't need to police the people because you've so well programmed them that they'll never even consider going against whatever your plans are. And that is also where we find ourselves. And that's okay. Ultimately, that is okay because all of this must come to pass and more. And it's going to be ugly. And a lot of people on the softer side are just going to quit. And that's okay. I mean, should it come down to like a full collapse and they decide they'd like to avoid it somehow, some crazy harebrained scheme of straddling our way into World War III with the hopes of plundering some other superpower, it would not shock me. The war in Venezuela in particular is bizarre. I don't understand. Like, who out of the American people who voted for Donald Trump was screaming, we need to go stop Venezuela and we need to depose Maduro? Like, seriously, take a moment to think about that. Just this random target all of a sudden. They act like it's the only communist nation they've ever heard of. They act like it's the modern Soviet Union times 1,000. And, they talk about the drug running when they want to sell it to you. Like, oh, they're running the drugs. But we know that's just not true. We know that most of the drugs come in on aircraft and across the border directly from Mexico. And that's just the truth. The drug boat, drug sub thing is a political tool. they're not nearly as common as they were 30, 40 years ago. And it's because and the world is locked down. Like, you're not going to sneak a boat anywhere. You're just not going to do it. Every square inch of the ocean that you would need to go through, if it's not physically possessed by some warship at the moment, there are satellites that can spot every square inch anyway. And they'll just send a warship. Because that's what they do ultimately. They're just killers. And that is the purpose of the panopticon. That is the purpose of the surveillance that surrounds everything now. That is what Palantir is. That is what Flock AI cameras are. That is what the Real ID is. The ultimate goal of being able to track everybody is so they know who they need to kill, because that's what they're gonna do. They're just going to kill us. And by the time anybody realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. Like Terence McKenna said, they got on the cattle cars and they did not even struggle. And we're not going to. So many small creators are popping up now all over the place, basically putting out different versions of the exact same video, where they're just talking about how the future is over. And it's always these poor Gen Z kids who barely got the tiniest taste of the good world, but they were small, tiny children and barely remember it. And they've been cheated, and I gotta say I'm rooting for them at this point. All those angry young men. I hope they get what they want. Their world sounds a lot better than this. You know, the founding fathers were a group of angry young men. We look at them as being old men because they were old in most of their portraits, but when they did the great things that we talk about them, I mean, they were in their 20s and early 30s. There's only one way this goes. It's gonna come down to these young people deciding that enough is enough and taking a stand. And it is very likely inevitable. And I think older people who are awake and who don't want to live in this system anymore should be prepared to support these young people. Because they're right when they say the older people stole everything from them. I mean, the boomers stole everything from Gen Z. Like, at least we got a taste. But I mean, can you imagine being 22, young white male? You know, you've never been treated right. Everybody talks about how much they hate you. You're just a quiet, calm dude. You know, you don't harm anybody. You're not doing anything wrong. Your whole life you're just hearing how shitty you are and how you don't deserve a fucking job. And then when it's time for you to sink or swim because you need to get a job to not starve, it turns out they were right. Nobody wants to give you a job, even though you're typically the most qualified and would put in the most work. And they're waking up now that the reason this has happened to them was because people chose to do it to them. And that's dangerous. They're realizing now probably too late, that, oh shit, these kids aren't the stupid lazy people we kept calling them their entire lives. They figured it out. And that's why you see the massive concern troll moral panicking happening right now from the boomer right. And all of these Gen Z people showing up on the creator space out of nowhere, arguing for the new America First politics, they're gonna keep coming. Your Brylan Holly hands are not going to win the hearts of the youth. You're not gonna, the old boomerism of just work hard and it'll all pay. I mean, that didn't even work for the millennials. I worked since I was 14 and a half years old, and I've never gotten ahead ever, no matter what. Because every time I get a promotion or a better job, it's never enough to keep up with that year's inflation. Because my whole life they've been devaluing the currency since the day I turned 18. And that's just the reality of it. And millennials, so many of my cohorts are just the dumbest. You know, our culture that they pushed onto us was so anti-intellectualism. Like if you were even remotely aware or awake, you would just be treated like a freak. But now a lot of those dumbasses in their 30s realizing, fuck, I've been broke my whole fucking life, but I've never been lazy. They're finally waking up, but it's too late for us. And that's why I say millennials, Gen X, we are going to have to make the tough sacrifices. We're going to have to fight. And we're going to have to go down and lose it all. Not like we have anything to lose. But we're going to have to do what our parents should have done for us. And we're going to have to fight for the younger people so that they can see the shade of the trees that we planted. Nobody protected us. In many ways, that's true. They just told us to quit whining. And you know, the new boomer meta nowadays is just, I mean, you go on any discussion where young people are bringing up how hard they have it, and all you see is the same boomers saying the same shit like it's a script. Well, if you didn't buy coffee and toast and go on a million vacations and blah blah blah. And then of course in the replies is even older millennials like myself pointing out I've never been on a vacation in my adult life. Never. The closest thing was driving an hour down to see parents on a weekend. I've always just worked through everything. I haven't purchased a cup of coffee that I didn't brew in my home in like a decade. And you're still broke, you know? I'm playing a video game that's 25 years old. What do you think my gaming budget is? Like, we don't spend frivolously. We don't even have anything to spend. And I never really have. Half of my miniature collection came from a crazy lady who wanted to be my sugar mama. Like, I don't have anything. It's frightening how selfish and obtuse boomers are. They just outright reject that the world has changed. Because it was true that when they were kids, they could just go out and be willing to work and get a great paying job that they could hold on to for 20 years and retire from. But I mean, it's never been the case. in my lifetime or anybody's lifetime that I've been friends with, even older people. Like, it's just never been the case for us. You go and, you go and try to be loyal to a company post 2008, and you're just going to be that sucker that sits there making nothing and never going anywhere. Promotions are a thing of the past, and like younger people acknowledged this early on. And that's why the boomers started enraging. These kids don't know anything about company loyalty. They just jump from job to job. And it's like, well, yeah, you know why? Because that's the only way to get raises now. It's the only way to try to keep up with inflation. And they live in the past because it really was that easy for them. They never had to do anything other than just show up. And it's not a change because people got greedy. It's not a change because big bad companies decided they were going to charge more money for whatever. It is because outside forces from a pretty specific country have been intentionally destroying our currency so they can plunder our nation. And their last big play is going to be getting our people to go die in another bloody war for them that will probably be the bloodiest one yet. If you're in the military, you're going to have a pretty tough choice coming up, and I do not envy you. Because they're going to send you to a place where you know you should not be. They're going to tell you to kill people that you know are your brothers. Just like World War II and World War I, it's just going to be fields of slaughter for European men, the best of us. And like I said, you have to make the tough choice. What do I do? Who do I become when it really matters? Who am I going to be for the younger people who have to live another 40, 50, 80 years in the world that I leave behind? These are the serious questions we have to ask ourselves. You're right, Eddie. And I say it to myself all the time when I'm driving around and I see the horrible things going around, people just being miserable. I'm just like, we're gonna have to be the ones to give up everything so that maybe the world goes on and doesn't suck. They brutalize us every day, bombard us. It's not just a battle to physically possess your body. It is a battle to ensure that your entire personality is a crafted engram directly and completely constructed by the state. They don't just want you to think the things that the state wants you to think. They want you to think like the state. And they want you to be completely subservient internally to the point of never even questioning, and that is the state in which everybody is before they wake up. It's the state I was in before I woke up. It's the state you were in before you woke up. It is the state that anybody who's ever woken up to the lie has been in. And this lie is so much older than their plundering of America. They've plundered every nation that has ever allowed them within their borders. That is what they do. Everybody acts like this is the first time this has happened. Everybody acts like it started in the 19th century. Everybody acts like it started in the 20th century. Everybody's like, it had to be the 20th century, post-World War II. That's when they started gaining power. And it's like, no, dude. Like, they talk about this shit in the Bible, okay? They talk about what they do to nations in the Bible. Jesus talked about what they do to nations in the Bible. There are many historical accounts all throughout history. So many proverbs about this group of people, which is like, I mean, what does that tell you? That it's like every culture in the world has a proverb about how bad XYZ thing is. Like, they added all the healers to every campaign. Good. And there's a Russian proverb that I love so much. The Russians actually have tons of proverbs about these people, but it's like, the Brazilian will always tell you what happened to him, but he will never tell you why. And it's incredibly accurate. I mean, didn't recently one of their embarrassing leaders get up at one of their embarrassing conferences and say, "We were kicked out of 109 countries, and it was never our fault"? Like, just imagine the level of narcissism and like utter lack of self-awareness required to say the things that they say. Think about it. Like, just think about how confident they are in their belief that they're superior to everybody else. And it's actually, it goes deeper than that. I saw a video today of a Hasidic talking about how Goyim aren't people and how this is a video that he made and posted today. During this current climate, they're just, when everybody is talking about them and waking up to them, brother has full confidence to get up and say something like that and post it on his very popular Instagram. Think about that. They're having conferences worrying that people are finding out about them and starting to hate them. And they're still saying all the hateful shit that makes people not like them. Because ultimately they believe they'll win. And I believe they'll win. I think it's prophesied. I think they are specifically the driving force to bring about the end. And I think they always have been. They've always been the disruptors and the thieves and the drainers, the plunderers. Usury is not only their primary way of staying wealthy and happy, it's their biggest weapon to destroying who they consider to be their enemies. And ultimately, everyone who is not one of them is an enemy to them. That's not a me thing. That's not something I say. That is directly what they say. Everybody. Because, again, they don't just view themselves as being special or chosen type people. They view themselves as being the only real people, and everybody else is a soulless cattle for them to use however they please. And that's the biggest realization that a lot of people need to have, not just people who don't like them, but people, or not even just people who currently like them, but people who don't like, say, their ideals, or people who talk about just, yeah, well, what about the government? It's just, it's just their government and their plans, and it's like, I think it goes a lot deeper than that. I think there is a massive pattern throughout history that implies that believing you are the only race of people and everybody else is your cattle seems to just be a harmful set of beliefs. And it would be no different than any other culture believing such a thing. And they act on it. They do, and they are organized. Anybody who says they're not is a liar. They literally have meetings to talk about how they're going to silence people who criticize their nation. It's kind of alarming. And they've always been that way. They're the biggest lobby in all of America, probably the world, like in every nation that allows it. Like they're probably the biggest lobby in those nations because that's where we're at. They had a plan for global domination, 4,000 years in the works, and we're at the end of it. So what are you going to do? What is anybody going to do? We're going to fight. We're going to have to go down fighting, I guess. Whenever the big move comes, you just have to resist, kicking and screaming. Do not go quietly. But we all ultimately know that the real victor will be Christ when he returns. And that's something that that's a hard thing to swallow. That there will be no mortal justice, there will be no mortal vengeance, that these people will win in the physical realm, but they're suffering in the eternal, immortal realm. And they know. They know it's coming. That's why they're all so desperate not to die. That's why they go through such great lengths to unnaturally extend their lives. That's why you heard Putin and Xi Jinping talking about replacing your organs and blood on a regular cycle to make you live into your mid 100s. Like, it's because they know the second they drop dead, lake of fire, endless screaming, agony, judgment, pain, suffering. Everything they ever did to humanity will be exacted on them times infinity until the end of everything. And everything will never end because God is eternal. So hell is eternal. And I don't think any deathbed confession is going to save the synagogue of Satan. I'm pretty sure God's going to do what he said in the Bible and spit them out of his mouth like the foul taste they are. And that's the solace we have to take, ultimately. I'm not saying do nothing when the time comes and they attack you. I'm not saying just lay over and die. But I am saying the first and only big comfort is that ultimately these assholes lose. And they lose big. And they know it. That's why they have so much fear in their faces when you see them. Kash Patel, with his bright eyes, he found out the hard way. Oops, now my soul is corrupted. Oops, Now I have to lie about how one of my friends died. Oops. Now I have to be the FBI director that redacts the Epstein files. Oops. And I think it's funny. You know why? Because I can't believe anybody in MAGA ever thought that a man named Cash Patel was gonna change the FBI for the better. I can't believe you thought a man named Cash Patel was gonna come here and do anything other than scam us. Because that's all they do. I mean, they'll sell out their entire family for $1. So what do you think they're gonna do to a bunch of foreign people that don't look like them? But, that's MAGA for you. They were always dumb. If you ever bought into it, you were dumb. From the very moment that Donald Trump announced his campaign way back in 2014, probably, on Alex Jones' InfoWars show, from that moment I knew two things were confirmed for sure that I had always suspected. One, Alex Jones having a real official future presidential candidate on his show means that he is definitely the controlled opposition we always thought he was. And two, the fact Donald Trump is a psyop. You could just tell by the way he talked on InfoWars back then. He just said everything that a viewer of InfoWars would want to hear from the first presidential candidate to go on InfoWars, which is basically, I believe all the conspiracy stuff you guys believe, and I'm going to fix it all, and I'm going to get rid of them all, and blah, 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 and we're going to clean it all out. And it's like, yeah, all that shit is real. But the idea that a lifelong billionaire, like literally part of the club, he's gonna come along and dismantle the club. Come on, man. Have some fucking sense. Same thing with QAnon. I always forget QAnon, that weird, like, new age samsara, gasara, nasara bullshit. I mean, that's what QAnon was. It was a psyop, like, MAGA retelling of the old Nasara Gasara scam. Like, and if you don't know what that is, imagine QAnon, but like 40 years ago. Exact same sort of deal, man. Anonymous man public publicizing the notion that he's some kind of like super top secret guy who has like information on these super rare, good guys deep cover in the government who are secretly working on a super secret plan to like rebuild the government, but for good this time. And there's going to be Pleiadian aliens, and like hot blonde Nordic chicks are going to come and they're going to like teach us their ways. And there's going to be a new currency, the Gasara, that's going to like fix everything because the Galactic Federation issued it and it's holds its value forever. This sounds like a fucking joke, right? Every single bit of yap that I just let out of my mouth is part of what the Nasara Gasara crowd actually claimed and believed, including the Intergalactic Federation of Planets issuing a cryptocurrency, which I suppose they were ahead of their time. They predicted cryptocurrencies in a way. They did say it would be a non-physical coin of some sort. Obviously, they didn't say it would be a blockchain transaction market, but you know, it's the QAnon thing was fun for a little while. I will admit it was super fun to go onto 4chan and see all the MAGA people saying the things they were saying. Just this notion of like we got white hats in the government who are working behind the scenes to do XYZ and look for Trump to touch his nose on the left side at exactly 4:59 a.m. on, you know, that was fun. It was really fun because like you could tell a lot of the people in the threads were like genuinely involved, and I just like to imagine what that's like. Wouldn't it be so fun to believe something? Not just to believe like a religion or what, but to believe that a physical thing is going to come and save everybody and it's real and it's going to happen, and the only thing you have to do is talk about it and let everybody else know that it's going to happen, because that was basically Q's entire call to action, was to just spread Q's information. I don't believe QAnon ever once told or asked anybody to actually do anything. All he said was, this is going to happen. Of course, none of it ever did, and here we are seeing that Donald Trump is just the biggest puppet shill in history at this point. I mean, my God, whatever Bibi wants, Bibi gets. He's getting his war in Iran. He's getting his war in Venezuela. Like, they gotta plunder. Plunderers gonna plunder. There's just the way it is. The upscaling looks pretty nice on the Celestials. Like, and obviously the skybox, the greatest skybox in the history of gaming. I would live in Nafui Quarter. If I was a Canthan resident, I'd take up a nice little slum shack on these towers. Fuck it. Sit out here, look at the sky, and basket weave. We're making some decent progress here. Just farming to make consets. And some 15 Celestial Essence stacks. Again, great farming method for newer players who have a decent enough set of heroes to get through this mission. It's a lot less sweaty than literally solo farming, as most people will try to suggest to new players. Like, don't do that. Do not put yourself through the struggle and expense of putting together this big, massive meta like solo build, something like, oh yeah, or some, people will show you this right here, this farming build for farming the underworld solo, stuff like that. And they make it seem like, oh, just take this build, take these items, and then you just go but do you not understand how fucking hard it is to solo content that's designed for 8 advanced, fully geared and well built players? Like, even if you have the perfect build and you have all your runes and you have all your everything else, like, you're gonna get smashed if you don't have the skill to actually use it. So like when like old vets say to new players, you guys gotta do, you shouldn't farm this. You need to go make a ritualist, make a dervish, and get in there to that UW solo. You can do the first room at the very least. That's like 10 ecto per hour, no problem. It's like, no, dude, nobody, no, a new player cannot, even if you bought him every single skill and item he needs for the build. Like, you have to learn how to use the build and you have to learn the game in general. So Simple missions like this, super easy, super chill. You can easily sit and yap or watch a movie while you do this shit. Stack your plat and ecto up. Get your materials and concepts up. Learn the game. And then slowly work your way into that end game content. Man, this is an MMO. That end game rush is how you kill your fun. Just play the game. There ain't no platinum trophies. You're never gonna 100% this game in your lifetime. Just chill. I wish I could describe how magical it is to just sit here and play this and just experience the peak of gaming. Everybody needs to do this. Like, come play Guild Wars Reforged. It's super cheap on Steam. And they packaged every campaign into one big box now for dirt ass cheap. You no longer have any reason to buy a bunch of boxes and shit. Eye of the North is even included. So now the expansion pack is just part of the game. And it has native controller support, Steam Deck support, gentlemen. I know there are some of you out there. This would be a incredible Steam Deck experience, especially now if you're somebody who flies. They got Wi-Fi on aircraft, and it's actually some of the best goddamn Wi-Fi in the world. So you could sit there on your 15-hour flight and grind out your new character and get your builds all set and just chill. Like, there's so much to do. And it really is like the greatest of all time, hands down. I can't think of a better PC MMO. Obviously, the greatest MMO and greatest game of all time is still Phantasy Star Online, but as far as PC MMOs go, and I would put Guild Wars at probably the number 2, maybe number 3 spot for like greatest general video game of all time. But this right here, Guild Wars is just something else. You know, sometime very recently, I I walked into, I'm not going to say the exact restaurant. I almost did, but that's probably irresponsible. I walked into a restaurant that's notorious for having a certain client base. And despite being in a town where their client base is not that prevalent, it's basically impossible to go in here without hearing people fighting. And that's rare. I do not live anywhere where that is common. Most people where I live are ancient. So, it's always a treat to go into this restaurant and take in the culture. Uh, and recently I walked in, and there was this. The manager of the place is a mud sharky, disgusting old blonde lady, but I go in and I mean, I shit you not, her entire staff are like 5 thugs at this place, which they always are. But I could just see in her eyes as these dudes were like basically fighting behind the counter. Like, she was so turned on. Like, this chick was loving watching these dudes fight and just like be hyper aggressive and shitty to one another. And it wasn't like in a fun sense. That's the one thing about this place is it's never the fun kind of playful like banter where we're just like, oh, you stupid faggot. Like it's nothing like that. It's always something hateful, and it's always hands being raised, and it always inevitably becomes physical. But just the nature of this little microcosm of what is wrong with Western society inside of this. You know what? Fuck it. It's a wing stop. Inside of this wing stop, um, is it's just mind-boggling how you can sit here waiting for a small order of wings inside of a wing stop in a town where this type of stuff doesn't happen anywhere else, but in here you'll have a mud shark watching three thugs basically about to start beating each other to death over some dumb thing that somebody said that I guess challenged my masculinity or whatever. You know those types. You know those types. By the way, someone said my character is black. My character is Arabic, sir. There's a difference, and I'm tired of people blackwashing Arabic shit. Okay? Arabic people did not. Arabic people are not from Africa, and African people are not from the Arabian Peninsula, damn it. They're a different people. Look at his face. That is not an African face. You will not find an actual African in Africa with these Eurasian facial features. But there is a lot of blackwashing of Arabic shit in this game, to be sure. There's a city, well, a whole, I suppose, nation, city state maybe, called Vabi. And yeah, it's populated by very dark, like African black people, but basically everything about it is like Persian and Arabian. It's kind of funny actually. It's just they took the wealthiest and like most powerful and like high noble looking Arabic culture and they blackwashed it. They did the same thing to the Egyptians. Your character's from an island called Istan, which is very clearly based on Egyptian motif and architecture, but everybody's pretty dark black. But I made my character Arabic because I believe Arabic people deserve credit for their accomplishments. I do think that we we have a lot of that in the future for our entertainment. Um, they just rewrite like history and blackwash like important shit, and they're historical docs. I saw something recently where I just looked at it and I was like, huh. Their goal with this is to make people think that European nations were always multicultural. Like, eventually, there's already young people, who don't realize that just 30 years ago, most of their classmates would be the same race as them instead of the children of illegal migrants from Zimbabwe or Ethiopia or Somalia in the middle of middle America. Like, they couldn't even comprehend it. I had I'm not even that old really. I had two migrants in any class growing up until I hit college. And even in college, it wasn't that bad. And that was 10 years ago. It's already so much worse. What people don't realize is the 50 million number that's like they're considering their high estimate for how many illegals came in the country during the Biden administration. No, 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 no. If they're saying 50, it's at least 100. That's why I always say if you want to save America, the first thing you have to do is deport at least 100 million people. And they just have to go. We can't have a third of the country being illegal migrants, paying no taxes, but somehow managing to drain all of our public resources and benefits. And I don't think that's a radical thing to say. But you have the Trump administration pussyfooting around. They're going to be the administration of half measures. And, they talk about how they're doing all this deporting. But it's like every story is we spent $20,000 and like 20 agents and 100 gallons of jet fuel to go arrest like one or two dudes who like had committed some other crime other than being an illegal migrant. It's like that's not what I wanted I didn't vote for this administration because I don't vote anymore. But I'm not consenting to their evil, but anyway. I mean, I know MAGA voted to have 100 million people deported whether they committed a crime once they got here or not. And you notice it's not happening, and it's never going to happen. Because this is all part of the plan. They're the bioweapons sent here to destroy the economy, the culture, and eventually genocide our people. And they've already destroyed the economy and culture, so what's next? You just have to think about what matters to you. What matters to you? Young people? Hopefully what matters to you is the better future that you can live and enjoy if we fight now. Older people, hopefully what matters to you is making sure that happens for younger people because you've realized it's too late for yourself. I know it's too late for me. The only woman I ever would have had children with was murdered by the same people who want to murder our whole race in April. So I'm out. I know any chance at a happy life is over. The only thing that would make me happier is to give what little I have left to make sure that the people younger than me don't have to go through what we did. That's the big ticket. Leaves immediately. There's a lot of people bank standing like it's 2001 in certain spots. Two districts at the temple. Oh, look at the blue dots on the map. We are indeed back. And they just keep spawning. We have bank standers in Guild Wars 1 in 2025, and the district is full. I think we have like 9 or 10 active districts in Commodon right now. Pre-searing had like 15 to 20 earlier. If you are considering playing this game, you should try to get a nice wide of all these people. Mac Daddy's giveaway stream. If you play Guild Wars and you want some giveaway stuff, there you go. Look at all of that. You guys remember when this was the norm? Like, everybody who was a gamer had at least one MMO that they like played religiously. It's like anytime you wanted to just play for real, you weren't trying out the latest console game or whatever, whatever dumb shit. This guy. I remember this guy. Endless loop of yap. But, yeah, and you would find them full just like social and talking, and people were, it was like a second life away from your school life or your abusive home life. In my case, like, you got to feel like you were part of a community. I think that's why MMOs were so unbelievably popular for the generations they were so popular for. Is it was a community for the people who had no community, because we don't. Point out where, like, I challenge anyone to find a community for for like Gen Z people growing up that wasn't like Club Penguin, or for millennial people growing up that wasn't Guild Wars, World of Warcraft, EverQuest, whatever. Because it's really all we got. Hyperborean knowledge in his video of how millennials were brainwashed. He has a whole breakdown of what they did to us as far as culture. And I mentioned it earlier. Just this notion that, like, going to the club and being a stupid whore, whether you were male or female, like, that's what adults do. That is what they told us. Like, if you're an adult and you're not going to the club all the time, getting drunk and dancing and listening to dumb music and being a general whore and a slob, then you're a fucking loser. Like, and it stuck. It stuck with me. I remember thinking, damn, am I a loser? I don't really like this stuff. I don't really like the idea of the club and like what all that entails. And am I a loser? But I think what's funny is now that we've all kind of escaped that boomer brainwashing that they for some reason tried to fill us with, now we see that like the people at the clubs every night are the biggest, most disgusting losers. But just had a memory like school, probably like 7th grade, middle school. We had like a mandatory like midday dance, like a school dance, but instead of like a classic school dance where like an instructor comes and teaches you how to like do a specific dance like as a group or whatever, a wholesome thing. Instead, they just played like club rap and just let people be disgusting and even like clapped and encouraged it. And just looking back on that, I'm like, what the fuck was that? And when Hyperborean brought that up, I couldn't believe it. I was like, it was like a core memory slapped me right back in the face, and I was like, holy shit, he's right. They brainwashed us into believing like slutting it up at the club was like male or female, that was life. And if you're not in a position to do that and you're not doing that constantly, then you've missed out. And like every and literally it's like every second spent in your life that you're not like clubbing and being the cool drunk guy or girl is a waste. And they talk about how they had like abstinence programs for stuff and stuff like that for us, but it was like one class one time, and it really didn't do much to help because they didn't all they talked about was STDs. And like young kids, every young kid thinks they're immortal and they're never going to get a disease, so you can't talk about diseases to the youth, you know. And they couldn't take a moral high ground aspect because remember, we live in a godless society. So they couldn't just take a moral stance of, well, being a slut is bad for your soul and it makes you a worse person. They couldn't say shit like that because that's inappropriate or whatever. Um, so we get what we got, which was just, hey, there's a chance you'll get kind of sick. Don't do it. Babies are expensive. Don't do it. That was the other message, is that babies are these gross, expensive things that should be avoided at like all cost. And that's how they brainwashed my generation into extincting the race, basically. Um, you know, a third of Gen Z was aborted. At first the number was like 26%. Now they're saying it was at least 33. Think about that. Anytime I heard somebody say this, I wish I could remember his fucking name, but he was like, anytime you see two Gen Z people standing near one another, just remember there's supposed to be a third person there. And anytime you see a large group of them, just keep counting to two. Every time you count to two, that's a dead person. I think about it a lot. You know what will be the judgment on our generation for boarding, for murdering a third of the generation that came after us? What will be our judgment? Because whether you did it or not, whether you supported it or not, it still happened, which means nobody fought. They talk about evil prevailing when good men do nothing. Well, yeah, good men did a whole bunch of nothing for decades and decades and decades. Pay no attention to the fact that my build does not look anything like the Soul Taker Scythe builds you will find on the internet. I made it myself because my account is new. I cannot recover my childhood account, and thus I do not have access to the scythe that is required for the meta build. I like mine better though. It has almost none of the survivability of the meta build, but almost twice the damage. And if my spirit spammer remembers to splinter weapon me, this is easily the highest damage melee DPS build in the game. It's pretty sweaty and requires quite a bit of obnoxious micromanagement, and if you get your enchantments drained, you're basically useless, but when it's working, boy does it work. Did you drain my signets? You little shit. At least it's not the damn Kwong Song you noticed when I was farming closer to the stars earlier. I was not using this build. That is because practically every group after the second boss will just drain every single enchantment on the player. And this shit don't work without my enchantments. Sucks, but look at all that damage. Half the time, it does so many hits all at once that the game can't actually register all of the flavor text to display the damage. It's a chain reaction between these two skills, basically. And it's an exponential thing because of how they interact. Like I said, a lot of micromanagement. I spend way more time enchanting myself than actually fighting, but I really only need to swing once or twice to kill entire groups. This guy. Now, the typical build for this is way more focused on high defense while you spam the relationship between these two spells. Um, Practically, you don't have any attacks on your bar. I have 2 attacks. You also don't even have any points into Scythe Mastery because there is a scythe you can get once a year. Again, new account, and I missed it. That rather than requiring Scythe Mastery, requires Soul Reaping, which is a Necromancer's primary ability, and it is also the attribute of the most important skill on the bar. So you could see how not needing to dump points into Scythe Mastery could allow you to dump a shitload more into more survivability options. Having said all that, I am shocked with how good this little build I threw together while I was asleep works. Like it literally, I could barely keep my eyes open the night I finally started putting this together. Oh man, there we go. But yeah, the more targets that are around you, the bigger the chain reaction. They all kind of build off of one another. Like this. All of his spirits died in one swing because, well, chain reaction. Mathematics is fun, and it's this exact thing right here that makes Guild Wars so radically unique. It is the specific fact that the amount of skills available to you is limited down to 8 that makes it possible for there to be so many of these awesome meta combinations of chain reactions. Because if you were allowed to just carry all your skills like you are in a lot of other MMOs, none of the skills could be nearly as good or have nearly as much synergy as they do. Oh, I remember this guy. He's a little on the crazy side. Kill him. Yes, spawn your spirits right in front of me, please. Oh man, Spirit of Disenchantment. It's all good. We got him back, and we killed him, which refreshed our shit, which is good, because they drained me again. Yeah, they continue to drain me. There we go, boy. Alright, let's get my enchantments back. Thank you. That is the major downfall of this build. You get drained and you're basically a weak dervish. Oh, would you just look at the Jade Sea, though? Look at those reflections. Looks incredible. I honestly can't believe they remastered this game. It's not really a remaster, it's more of a slight upscale, but still. I gotta say, the results are nice. And at the end of the day, the game has more players than it's had in a decade tonight. And that's the most important thing. 50-year mortgages. Has everyone seen that scam? That is their solution to the young people screaming about how we're never going to be able to afford a house. And I mean, most millennials will never be able to afford a house. The average home buyer age that they were finally forced to put out and admit is now 69 years old. Okay? What that means is that the entire housing market is just boomers selling houses to boomers, and then the end of that line, eventually it gets sold to BlackRock, and then, that's that. Now it's a rental forever. It was not a thing among boomers to pass down anything, despite most of them having had property and wealth passed down to them. There's this, massive disdain for nepotism. They act like any amount of nepotism is just, completely unacceptable, and they act like inheritance is just gonna make you lazy. And they act like they never owed you anything to begin with, if we're being real. And it's like, that is purely a boomer notion. Like, for all of human history until them, there was no concept of a man's wealth. This is the family's wealth. That's a rich family. That's a well-to-do family. That's a powerful family. And elites, the secretive elites and the public elites, nepotism is how they became and how they stay elite. Inheritance is how they became and stay elite. There's just no question about that. So through their takeover of the culture and the fact that the boomers were the biggest generation to ever just be completely brainwashed by the television. I mean, all of their opinions come from it. They were able to ingrain into them this deep-seated, like almost hateful notion towards nepotism. And wow, what an effective way to destroy a race of people. Convince their parents that helping and like boosting your children's lives is somehow going to ruin them. Meanwhile, the people who are telling you this, their kids are gonna inherit $10 billion or what, they get the keys to the company, they get the easy political position, everybody gets a little piece. Oh, I hate this. If you drain my enchantments, you will not be having any of that. They killed my healer. It's all good. Because we resurrected. Thank you, General Morgan. You know, the other reason the housing market is so fucked up is because the boomers decided and then once they took power legislated the notion that a home should be another appreciating retirement asset. Like before this, a house was just a place to live. You didn't really think about resale. You were like, I like this house because back then, like I said earlier, you really could just work for one company your entire life and be great. So why would you need to move? You found a house you love? Awesome. Keep it. Buy it for your $19,500 in a firm handshake and keep it forever. But now that everybody has to move all the time, everywhere, just to like keep up with inflation and a modern promotion, quote unquote, is really just getting a new job. Um, Now that that is the case, I mean, the idea of homes as an investment is just so malicious because it what you're really doing is making sure that the banks get the biggest possible cut on everything. And if you want to look to a policy that serves that machination no better than any other, sir, look no further than the policy of allowing 50-year mortgages. I mean, what's the interest going to be? I mean, my God, the banks are going to make a killing. And people will do it. Idiots will do it. Because they're like, well, at least I'm not paying rent. At least I'll have equity. Yeah, after 20 years, you'll have $500 in principal equity. Congrats. Like, I just can't believe it. I knew Trump was a lie and a fraud the whole time because there's no such thing as a powerful person who gets to be powerful and keep their virtue, but I did not expect it to be this violent. I mean, my God, has he turned. I mean, people are sitting there talking about the Epstein files when he was getting elected, how, oh, they're coming out. Don't you worry, like, they're gonna come out, we're gonna bust these guys. But then all it takes is a single visit from Bibi the day they're supposed to come out, and suddenly the Epstein files are a Democrat hoax, and there was nothing in those folders. I mean, come on, man. I know that moment was probably the biggest wake up call for the MAGA holdouts. I know it was because I literally watched it happen to people. But there's still so many people holding out. And it's like, I understand that, like, physically, consequentially, it doesn't really matter if they continue to support him. But spiritually, man, do you really want to be the guy giving your energy to demons like that? Supporting someone so vicious and, like, clearly malicious. And now he talks about nothing but whatever the hell Israel wants. That's all he talks about. You know, he screwed over Massey over voting to release. I mean, I can't believe that now the Democrats are the ones who want to release the Epstein files. And when they come out, it's going to be redacted all to hell because it turns out no, Dan Bongino was not on vacation this entire time. That was a cover story. He has, in fact, been redacting the Epstein files the entire time, guys. So people say, oh, well, maybe Trump's compromised, but we still got good guys like Bongino in there. No, there are no good guys on the Trump camp. They're like, are you crazy? You really think a good guy would be able to sneak his way into a den of demons? Like, seriously. The opposite is what happens. Demons sneak into dens of decent people. Decent people don't sneak. Decent people aren't good at sneaking. That's why evil always wins. That's why the only way you're gonna beat evil is by not fighting it. Resist, always resist. But don't gaze into the abyss and don't fight with monsters. None of that is worth the consequences. None of it. Joshua Graham says waging war on good people is bad for the soul. He's only half right. What he should have said was waging war is bad for the soul. Because it is. And all throughout history, we've just been shown time and time again that that's just the truth. Do I want to see a big ass fight? You betcha. Do I want to see the good guys win? Duh. But do I think the victory will be for mankind? I pray that it will be, but I know that it will not. That's why the best thing any of us can do is pray and speak out. Proselytize. You have to let people know. Nowadays, the best way to convert people is to just point out, hey, you know all the stuff going on in the world? We were warned. The Bible tells us about it. And you'll see in people's heads, it just all clicks because the biggest question they've had the whole time was, how could such a massive and evil conspiracy manage to, like, actually work? How could they keep it all a secret? How could any of this go down? But once you realize, oh, this was foretold, this was prophesied, and supernatural forces are at work in keeping it all a cover-up, then you realize the master of deception is the same one who masters your politicians. Millennials, Gen X, I implore you, listen to the misery of those younger than us. Listen to what they say. just be ready. Don't just be ready to, don't be ready for anything in particular. Let me be clear there. Have compassion for the young people and learn how you can help awaken others. My neck is killing me, and I really can't sit here still much longer. I thought tonight I would be able to go longer, but I am experiencing a flare, I suppose, of neck pain. You can probably hear my neck popping in the microphone. Hold up. There you go. So, I'm going to cut it off here while we look at this beautiful jade. The upscaling on the jade is really nice. Look at that. We got some bizarre looking dolphins trapped in the jade. Yes, we are indeed standing on a gigantic ocean that was turned to solid jade. And it is rather large. Come play some Guild Wars, guys, before it's too late. Eventually this is all going away. The power is the first thing to go. Power and the internet, everything that has kept us calm, our only escapes, it's going away too, so you better get out here and enjoy it quick. I don't even think we have 6 months left. But if you did watch this, thank you. And so you don't have to learn the lesson the hard way that I did, go to the person you love the most right now. Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't even wait for me to finish telling you this. Go to them right now and tell them in great detail. Take your time, think it through, and tell them in magnificent detail why them and only them could ever have the love that you have for one another, and why your dynamic is perfect, and why you're best friends and best lovers, best family, and why every little thing in life is made possible because you have their love. Because you think you have time, but you don't. Nobody does. Time has you. And you don't want to be like me, regretting all the things you never said when it's suddenly too late. Vaya con